Hey there! Today we're diving deep into the emotional roller coaster that is Red Dot. It is David's graduation ceremony, a pivotal moment marked by cheers and applause from a crowd that includes his enthusiastic girlfriend, Nadja. Post-celebrations, the duo finds themselves in a cozy cafe where Nadja expresses her pride in David's achievement. Amid discussions about relocating to Stockholm, David abruptly excuses himself to the restroom. Following this, David calls the cafe announcement guy and makes a significant confession. He declares his love and proposes to Nadja. Emerging from the restroom, David witnesses Nadja standing just outside, having overheard the entire proposal. Overwhelmed with tears of joy, Nadja accepts the proposal, turning the graduation day into an unexpectedly beautiful celebration of love. 1.5 years later, David's hooked on video games, and Nadja's frustrated over a stubborn washing machine lid. Despite her pleas, David, caught up in work, dismisses the repairs, claiming a much-needed break. In the laundry room showdown, Tomas, the neighbor, shows up. Nadja, juggling chores, apologizes, but Tomas, being cool, insists on waiting. Mid-chat, Nadja spills the beans. She's pregnant. Urging Tomas to keep it from David, she shares fears about parenthood, mentioning David's relentless work and her dread of becoming a housewife. Tomas, sharing his take on having a child, is briefly nudged into a somber memory of his loss. Apologies and thanks are exchanged, and Nadja appreciates Tomas's unexpected support in this unexpected twist in life. The next morning, a sweet surprise awaits Nadja. David leaves a tray of fruits with a note saying, "Meet me in the bathroom." She discovers the washing machine lid fixed and another note, "Meet me on the stairs." Through a charming trail of notes, Nadja is guided to different corners of the house. The journey of notes leads her to the car, where David, accompanied by their dog Boris, awaits. He confesses to taking a day off from work, proposing they spend quality time together. Revealing his plan, David announces a booked trip to Bear Valley for camping and trekking beneath the northern stars. Overjoyed, Nadja eagerly joins him, and together they set off on their unplanned adventure. At a pit stop for gas, another car pulls up with two men inside, who happen to have a German Shepherd. After a friendly doggy introduction, one of the guys awkwardly comments on Nadja's appearance, making the atmosphere a tad uncomfortable. Once they leave for the washroom, Boris catches a peculiar scent and leads David to the back of their car. There, they stumble upon a grim sight. A reindeer's head dripping with blood and lying in the trunk of the guy's car. Horrified, they quickly leave, unintentionally scratching their car in their haste. Nadja urges David to confess and apologize, but he insists they won't notice and drives away. Eventually, they arrive at their hotel. The owner informs them about the unpredictable chances of seeing the northern lights. Emphasizing the nighttime cold, he advises them to stick together to stay warm during the night. The next morning, Nadja, David, and their faithful companion Boris gear up for their camping adventure. As they approach their car, an unpleasant surprise awaits them. A significant scratch and racist graffiti against Nadja. They are furious, but move on. During the journey, they encounter the duo's car, and Nadja can't resist taking matters into her own hands. She demands David to stop the car, swiftly dashing out to reciprocate the scratch with a screwdriver. However, her revenge is short-lived as the guy releases his German Shepherd to confront her. With quick thinking, Nadja makes a run for their own car, narrowly avoiding the canine encounter. Finally reaching their campsite, they set up their tent. As night falls, they immerse themselves in a blend of laughter, jokes, and tender moments. A sudden shock jolts the tranquility of their camping night as a red dot appears in their tent, indicating a sniper's target. Terrified, they cautiously emerge, urging the unseen assailant to cease. Panic intensifies when David spots the red dot fixating on Nadja, prompting him to swiftly pull her aside. Fearing for their safety, they retreat into the tent. Boris, sensing something amiss, bravely confronts the source of the light, barking furiously. Despite their attempts to restrain him, Boris charges out. Then the sniper aims, shooting the tent's lamp and plunging it into darkness. The duo, now exposed, dashes out to escape the looming threat. To their dismay, a remote-controlled drone with a spotlight trails them, exposing their every move to the shooter. Desperate, they flee towards the cover of the trees. Nadja, piecing together the puzzle, realizes the perpetrators are none other than the two racist guys. Amidst the trees, They hear Boris's screams, leaving them gripped with fear, uncertain of his fate. They reach a hut as the night wears on. Plagued by both cold and fear, they hatch a plan at dawn. Nadja suggests making their way to the car, with David hot wiring it. Despite the grim situation, David assures her he can handle it and insists on retrieving the keys and belongings from their tent. Approaching their tent, only David ventures inside to gather their things. His horror unfolds as he discovers the heartbreaking sight of Boris's lifeless head lying in a pool of blood. Overwhelmed by the cruelty of the shooter, David attempts to retrieve their belongings, but his hand is ensnared by a tool meant for catching animals. In agony, he calls out, and Nadja rushes to his aid. Though she manages to free his hand, it's now covered in blood. Using materials from the tent, she improvises a makeshift bandage. Amid the chaos, the car keys remain elusive, prompting them to retrace their steps on foot. As they backtrack, a figure emerges, and gunfire forces David and Nadja to the ground. In a moment of clarity, David discerns a pattern. The shooter takes 10 seconds to reload. Using this knowledge, he plans their escape. As the shooter fires, the duo seizes the 10-second window to flee. However, Nadja, driven by fear, continues running beyond the interval, inadvertently leaving David exposed. A gunshot pierces the air, and David crumples to the ground. Nadja, unaware of David's fate, keeps running until she realizes he's missing, and her desperate screams echo in the icy wilderness. Meanwhile, David, facing the approaching shooter, forces himself to rise and flee. On the frozen river, Nadja discovers a chilling reality. The ice begins to crack beneath her. Lying down, she attempts to prevent further cracking. Both scream for each other as the pursuit intensifies. Reaching Nadja, David rushes toward her, but the ice shatters, plunging him into the freezing water. Miraculously, Nadja spots him and rushes to his aid and pulls him to safety. Trembling with chills, David reveals he's been shot. Nadja, acting swiftly, leads him to a nearby hut to address their immediate crises. In the dimly lit hut, she ignites a lamp, directing David to remove his clothes. She then skillfully extracts the bullet lodged in David's body with a needle, covering him with a cloth afterwards. Come morning, they learn that mountain rescue has arrived. Peering through the window, they spot the unexpected arrival, the racist brother posing as mountain help. In a swift move, they make their escape through the back door. The brother, attempting to locate them, follows the sounds of their movement. Seeking refuge in a tunnel, they discover an unwelcome surprise. A bear is asleep behind them. As the brother closes in, Nadja takes decisive action and shoots him with a tool she found in the hut, ensuring their safety. As they race towards the hotel, David, haunted by hallucinations of the racist brother, is visibly traumatized. Nadja, ever supportive, encourages him to persist despite the torment. While navigating through the trees, they hear a voice and are startled to find the second guy from the earlier encounter. Fear grips Nadja, prompting her to retreat. The guy, perplexed by Nadja's sudden fear, attempts to inquire, but before he can utter a word, David hurls a stone at his head, rendering him unconscious. Seizing the opportunity, they take the guy's snowbike to hasten their journey back to the hotel. Arriving at the hotel, Nadja urgently requests the owner to call for help. However, her sense of security crumbles as she overhears the owner making a suspicious call, saying, "They're here now. Come fast." Realizing the owner's sinister alliance with the shooter, Nadja attempts to flee with David. The owner, brandishing a knife, ominously declares, "It'll be over soon." In a bid for safety, Nadja leads David to another room and barricades the door. In this tense moment, David notices a series of photos, stirring unpleasant memories about a familiar young boy. As tension thickens in the room, an unexpected intruder enters with a rifle, none other than Thomas, their neighbor. The revelation hits Nadja and David like a tidal wave of memories. Flashbacks transport them to a tragic day when they inadvertently took Thomas's son's life, without knowing it was his son. Shocked and horrified, Nadja rushes out to find the boy lifeless. Returning to the car, she urges David to inform the police, but he callously resumes driving. Traumatized, Nadja contemplates calling the cops, but David warns her of dire consequences. Tomas discloses that he had a recording of the incident from a drone with a camera. Despite having evidence, Tomas refrained from exposing them. Tomas goes on to reveal his calculated move, strategically becoming their neighbor to gather more information. Expressing his disgust at the duo's apparent indifference to the pain they caused, Tomas confronts them with the weight of their past actions. As Thomas asserts their deserving suffering for their past actions, fear grips David, who resolves to confess to the police. In response, Thomas violently slaps David and levels the rifle at his head. Nadja, desperate to prevent tragedy, pleads with Tomas, reminding him of the person he once claimed to be and his beautiful ideas about having a child. In a moment of twisted revelation, Tomas refrains from shooting David, but instead delivers a brutal blow to Nadja with the rifle, rendering her unconscious. Upon waking, Nadja finds herself tied to a chair, witnessing a drilling machine in David's hands. Tomas, driven by a desire for them to suffer as he did, instructs David to use the drill on Nadja's stomach, targeting the unborn child. With a 5-second ultimatum, Thomas threatens Nadja's life if David fails to comply. David, torn between horror and moral turmoil, attempts to carry out the unthinkable. However, just as Thomas nears the count of 5, David manages to resist, unable to commit such a brutal act. Amidst the chaos, the racist brother bursts into the room. Assessing the dire situation, the racist brother confronts the owner with a rifle, demanding an explanation. However, Tomas intervenes, shooting the racist brother, who shoots the owner in a violent altercation. As the violent confrontation unfolds, David seizes the chance to free Nadja. The duo escapes the hotel but encounters a setback when the snowbike fails to start. With David too injured to run, he asks Nadja to escape. Nadja faces a heart-wrenching decision. Tearfully, she professes her love for David and runs for her life. While running, Nadja stumbles upon the guy they had previously hit with a stone and spots his rifle. Meanwhile, Thomas, aiming his rifle at David, demands to know Nadja's whereabouts. Before he can shoot, Nadja reappears with the rifle, declaring she won't endure more suffering. Thomas, seemingly surrendering, smiles and cryptically mentions, "You should have seen behind you earlier." Nadja turns around, only to be shot dead by Tomas's wife, who had silently approached from behind. David is devastated and pleads with Thomas to end his life, unable to bear the loss of Nadja. With a smile of revenge, Thomas leaves David lying there, shattered and alone. The twisted cycle of tragedy reaches a grim conclusion. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.